In JavaScript, when we declare a variable like this, okay, let's say let language, just like this, and we'll go ahead and also do another one. Let another language equals, let's say Python, right? Now let's console.log their values. Console.log language. Console.log another language. Now let's save and run the code and see what we get. Right, node undefined. So we get undefined for language and Python for another language. Okay, so we did not assign it to any value, but we get an output for it. So let's go ahead and see the type of this language. Okay, let's check their type using the type of keyword. Let's copy and paste down here. Let me copy again. I saved it without Control V. So we're going to do type of language, right? Language and type of another language. So when we save and run the code, now what do we get again? Now we get undefined and string. Okay, so up here, the first undefined we get was undefined as a value. Then we get Python as a value. Now we are trying to check their data types using the type of keyword. So we got undefined again, but this time as a type for language, and we got string as a type for another language. So please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Ring the notification bell for more programming content. Now, what is happening in this case? Even though we are yet to initialize this first variable language, right? Meaning to give it a value. It is technically not empty. It might be empty from your side as the programmer, but under the hood in JavaScript, it is not empty. Now, why is that? The reason is because when you declare a variable, like we did here, let language, right? Using either the let keyword or var keyword, remember you can't initialize a variable with const. Okay, now that variable you declare automatically gets assigned to something called undefined. Okay, now undefined is a primitive in JavaScript. It's a primitive data type in JavaScript. So when it comes to the time of the execution of the code, now JavaScript compiler checks if the variable has a value. Now, if the variable does not have a value assigned to it at the time of execution, which is what we did here, language has no value assigned to it. But at the time of execution here, the output we will get is undefined. Okay, because when we declare the variable, the two variables, JavaScript assigned the undefined type to them. Okay, it does not ultimately know what their value is going to be. So it gives them a value called undefined for both variables in the computer memory. So now when we try to see the output of language, but we did not assign a value to it, so JavaScript simply gives us what it gave the variable, which is undefined. Now, when it gets to the turn of another language, and JavaScript says that we have assigned a value to it, in this case, Python. So we get undefined and Python. So trying to check the type here again, we get undefined for language and string for another language. So you have undefined acting both as a value that JavaScript gives a variable, and at the same time, it is also a data type in itself. Okay. Now, don't allow the name undefined to fool you. Okay. Undefined does not mean empty. No, it does not mean empty, because right now we are not getting empty or nothing inside this language. We got something when we console.log language, and that something is undefined. So undefined does not mean empty. Undefined means that the variable has not been assigned a value by you, the programmer, but it has been given a value by JavaScript. Okay, so in JavaScript, when we want to talk about something that is empty, it is null, we call empty. So let's check some codes to really compare undefined with null, so you can see that they are not the same thing. Now we're going to use the if statement. Let's use if and else, right? And the condition will be if language. We are going to use the two equality sign, the loose one, which is the double equal sign, and the strict equality, which is the triple equal sign. So first, we are going to use the double equal sign to see what happens. No, right? So inside here, we are going to say console.log true. So we want to get true. Now in the body of else, we console.log false. Right. So when we run this code now, let's save and run it. So we get true. Okay, why did we get true? Even though null is a different data type, different from undefined, we get true because null means empty, and the language variable which we are using to check null, from your side as the programmer, it is also empty, right? So this double equal sign is a loose equality operator. So it simply checks, are they empty? Now from your side as the programmer, it is empty. Now null is also an empty object. So it simply returns true. But what happens when we use the strict equality sign? Now let's save by adding a third equal sign, making it 3. Now we run the code and we get false. So we get false. There are two reasons we get false here. The first one is because triple equal sign does not check only the value. Okay, the double equal sign checks only the value, and language has no value. And in JavaScript, null also has no value. It is empty. So that is why we get true. But with the triple equal sign, it does not check for only the value. It also checks the type. So even though from your perspective as the programmer that the variable has no value assigned to it, right? From the perspective of JavaScript under the hood, this variable language has a value assigned to it, and that value is undefined. In fact, when you hover over it, VS Code lets you see that it is undefined. Okay, so in this case, because of this difference, undefined is not equal to null. Now, the second reason we get a false is simply because undefined is a different data type and null is also a different data type. So they are not equal to each other. It's just like trying to check if a number is equal to string, and we know they are not equal. So we can also get undefined with functions. And once again, please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. So let's say you define a function with a parameter and you did not return the value of the operation. Okay, so let's see an example down here. So let's say const say name, sorry, say name, right? Equals, okay, let's use an arrow function. Say name. Okay, let's pass a parameter to it, but we won't use the parameter yet. Let's say username. Right. Now, we are not performing any operation inside this function. So what are we going to do? Let's save and run the code, right? Let's do something like say name console.log say name. Let's invoke it. When we save, come down here and run the code. What do we get? We get undefined, right? And this is because we returned nothing. So let's go back inside and add a return keyword. So when we add a return keyword, what do we get? Let's say return, what should we return? What should we return? Okay, let's return a message, right? And say, hi, I'm username. Good. So we come out here and use, we have defined an operation, what should happen inside the function. Now let's come out here and use an argument with it. So we're going to say console.log Cornelius, right? So let's save and run the code. So we get hi, I'm Cornelius, right? So now if we also go ahead and try to run the function without an argument, okay, now let's remove the name. We save and we get hi, I'm undefined. Now username will be undefined because parameters in themselves, username up here is undefined, okay? It is only when we pass a value when calling the function here do they get defined. So username up here in the computer memory gets a value called undefined for it. Only when we call it here as an argument does that value replace undefined in the computer memory. But if we don't and we perform an operation, what we are performing an operation on is undefined. So that was why we got hi, I'm undefined. Okay. Now there is also a warning though, in fact, two warnings. Now remember, undefined is a value that should only be used by JavaScript and JavaScript alone. Don't ever make it a habit of setting a variable equal to undefined. Okay, let's say something like let a equals undefined, right? Or let b equals undefined. Okay, so now let's go down and say console.log console.log a console.log b. And when we save, what do we get? We get undefined for both. In fact, let's also go ahead and add one more. Let's see, which should be the right way undefined should be, right? Now let's come down here and also console.log c. Save. We get 3 undefined. Okay, so now why you should never try this is because this might not be a problem if you are just starting to work on a new project. But assuming you did not open that project for like 2 or 3 months, or maybe someone else has to work on it. It will be hard now to tell if the variable is undefined because you said it is undefined, or the variable is undefined because JavaScript is saying it is undefined. Okay, so now although the color here might change, and you can see that the first one is a string and the other two are types. So just make sure it is JavaScript that assign a variable to undefined. Don't do it for JavaScript. In fact, don't do it like this variable b here. Okay, don't do it like that. Just let it be C. If you want to declare a variable without knowing the value to assign to it yet, just let it be like that. Let C equals to anything. Okay. Now the second one is that the name undefined, unlike so many other keywords in JavaScript, undefined is not a reserved keyword. So what that means is that you have the freedom to use the name undefined in your code. But I'm warning you now, don't ever, like ever, try something like that. Never try something like that. Because even though it is not reserved, there is an undefined property which is part of the JavaScript global object. And this will cause name collision. And I can assure you that you don't want to ever find yourself in such a messy situation. Okay. So don't ever use the name undefined, even though it is not reserved. All right, that's all for this video in Undefined. Now, remember, you can rewatch the video if you need to, and practice, practice, practice. Always practice. And also remember that there are so many other multiple resources online that can help you to learn even more. And don't forget, once again, to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.